This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. We are at day 8 of Browns practice, and there are some Browns that we just have not seen on the field this entire time. And as we get closer and closer to the first preseason game, you're going to want to see these guys get here, or else you're going to start to be worried about them not getting a full camp in at all, right? The guy that I'm most worried about here is Joe Royer. Joe Royer did not practice again today, personal reasons, I'm assuming. Miles Bryant didn't practice. Michael Burton, no practice. Damari Mathis. Carson Schwarzenegger out. Mike Hall out. Again, Mike Hall is one of the most important guys who needs to be out there because his entire career has been defined with the fact that he has not been available in camp for one reason or the other. I would love for him to get back out there. Parker Brailsford is another guy who needs to get out there, right? Kendrick Green, it could matter less. Izan Miller, Elijah Chapman. Elgin Jenkins is another guy you want out there. Tevin Jenkins, we know he has an injury history. Sam Kamara, Kalea Davis. Mason Graham, I want back out there. Malik Collins is on PUP. So some of these names that you're seeing consistently on this list, right? You know, you want to get some sign soon that they're not on here for some kind of major deal. They're not going to be a threat to miss the entire camp. Because like Mason Graham, I really like what he was doing early in camp. I want him to continue to build on that. He needs to be at practice to do that. Mike Hall, I really want him at practice. Parker Brailsford, he might start for this team. I need him at practice, right? Carson Schwarzenegger, you feel a little bit more comfortable with him sitting, but I still want Carson to get better, right? And being at practice is going to be something that makes him better. So again, the injury list is pretty long here. I really want to see some of these guys get back to practice sooner than later. Especially a guy like Mike Hall, who was already at risk of like missing his offseason, and has missed 2 off seasons in a row. I don't want him to miss any more of this camp. I think it's going to be vital for him. That being said, we did hear from some of the coaches today. The Browns defensive back coach, I thought, had the most interesting quotes talking about 2 separate players. Here's his thoughts on Tyson Campbell being underrated.
So, we really don't like outwardly think about like how people may view him, right? But when you think about like maybe overrated, the young guy just works. Like leader, he's a guy just like Denzel as well that we saw Miss Mary. Like he's a guy that as soon as we're talking about the coverages, he's talking about the second level players, the third level fits. He openly, speaks to the young men on the field about things that they can openly do better. And that's how you see this young man talent keep the rise. Now, at the end of the day, right, we're only a reflection of the guys around us. And he's around some really great players. What do you see?
So really good to hear that Tyson Campbell's having himself a good camp and that, he's taking on this leadership role as a bit of a young veteran, right? Like I think he's in his first contract post rookie deal. So technically a vet, and definitely on this team considered a vet. I mean, Jared Verse is a vet on this team. He's like a 3rd-year guy. So definitely considered a vet. And definitely like going out of his way to teach other people what he knows. But yeah, it's been nice to hear Tyson Campbell having a good camp because I've talked about it multiple times on this channel. That's somebody you need to have a good camp because how he holds up throughout the course of this year is going to be pivotal to this defense's ability to be able to maintain a certain standard that they have developed over the last couple of years, which is, at best, top 3 defense in the NFL, at worst, still top 8, right? But they want to continue to have that identity, which they have a chance to do even without Myles Garrett, even without Jim Schwartz. I think that they can do it, but they need guys like Tyson Campbell to have good camps. We also have talked about needing young corners and DBs and safeties to step up. And I think we had a couple of plays from the secondary today that was encouraging. Here's the Browns defensive backs coach, Brandon Lynch, talking about Chris Edmonds, who's had 3 interceptions this summer and has really impressed people.
He's a trusted teammate. He's a guy that comes in early. He stays late. He plays with a very hard edge. The things that are very important to us, he displays those things. And he's a kid that, like, when you're in the summer, he's always a young guy in here. When we're coming in, we're doing like certain works with our family. We're trying to get ahead on opponents. He's a young man that if he's not in the weight room, he's outside, he's running. If he's not running, he's looking at film. If he's not doing those things, he's talking to Ed trying to get better. So that's just a culmination of the development of the young man.
All right. So again, really like to hear that about a young DB here. We had some DBs make plays in practice and everything else in there, but that's secondary, right? That's the biggest question mark on this defense. We know what these linebackers are going to be, even though it's a little thin there. You got Quincy Williams, you got Carson Schlesinger. You feel good enough about those two, and Jason Tarver is the coach of that room, that you feel pretty solid about their ability to wreak some havoc there, right? Your defensive line, yeah, you're losing Miles, but you were able to bring in Jared Verse. So you still have a number one there at edge, right? You're developing your other edge options in Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, who I think are underrated, quite frankly. Like I was happy to see that the Browns did not get Jadeveon, because I thought that might have been something that could have stifled those guys' development. We'll see what ends up being right at the end of the year, right? But I think just for fit's sake, it makes sense for Jadeveon to go back to Houston for Jadeveon, and I think that's the best fit for him. And I think it makes sense for the Browns to stick with their young guys and not really break the bank for a veteran edge rusher at this point when they have two guys that they're committed to at the edge position. Still need to get a fourth one, but I think you can get a fourth one maybe on the cut down market at the end of camp. You know what I mean? I don't think it has to be a big name or anything like that. So yeah, they're going to be focusing on a lot of young names. But again, when we get back to the point about the defensive backs, that's the part of the defense, right? The defensive line, Mason Graham, you invested a pick in. Mike Hall, you invested picks in. You got Collins there. You feel pretty good about that. You feel like you got a good rotation of defensive linemen there. Aiden Hutchinson, Huntington, my bad, not Hutchinson. We had Aiden Hutchinson. We be cooking with gas. With Jared Verse, we be cooking. But Aiden Huntington, who is also there. So you feel good about that defensive line, even without Myles Garrett. The big concern is like, okay, what is this DB room without the top two? You know, if Denzel misses time, if Tyson Campbell misses time, who's stepping up? I think we got some guys who showed that they might be able to step up here in some backup roles. But we're going to talk about what happened in practice next. But first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports pick app. The app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quen_C. Tell my picks, one click, and follow your friends too. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. That's right. PrizePicks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win with that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win with your first $5 or up lineup. So we got some updates from training camp here. We saw some good things. Casey Concepcion, Jared Verse, I think are going to be a through line here. I think those are the guys who've been most impressive today. But let's look at some Casey Concepcion. We've been hearing great things about him. Here's a clip from Lance Reisland of Casey Concepcion on a fly sweep, and you see him be able to get out there, find the hole, cut up it. Don't know if that safety makes that tackle on KC. Again, we're going to have to see live contact with him. We haven't really seen, for as much noise as Todd Monken has made about this being a physical camp, I do think it's interesting we haven't really seen any live tackle drills at all. Like, there was live tackle even in Kevin Stefanski's practices. There were like a couple of periods every padded practice. I don't think there's been a live tackle to the ground period in Todd Monken's camp at all, which is interesting, right? Because again, he talked about it being very physical and wanting this camp to be physical, but no tackling to the ground. I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't seen that yet. I get the arguments against it, but again, I'm old school. I think you got to play football to prepare for football. And at some point you're going to have to tackle to the ground. Maybe they start to do it next week as they ramp up for a preseason game, but I would have liked to see it this week though, you know? So kind of disappointed that we've gone through an entire week in pads. We haven't seen one tackle to the ground, period in practice, which is, I thought that they would be a lot more physical than that as far as the structure of practice. Jared Verse, though, doing a great job of getting in the backfield here, just kind of beats the whole Browns offensive line, would have just cracked Shedeur Sanders. This is a live play here. Obviously, even if you're tackling to the ground, you're never going to tackle your quarterback in practice. But nice to see Jared Verse making plays, Jared Verse making headlines, everybody talking about Jared Verse, all the things that they like about Jared Verse, the leadership stuff. Look, for a guy who's in the position that Jared Verse is in, where he gets traded for the franchise player of the team, and he happens to play the same position as that guy did, that's a tough spot to be in for Jared Verse. But I think this has gone as well as it can go so far for Jared Verse, and I think he's handled it as well as you can handle that, right? And I think he's built for it, right? Like, I don't think the pressure of having to live up to Miles or live up to the trade is really going to be something that affects his trajectory, because he just seems to be pretty locked into the present right now, which I like a lot about Jared Verse. So he's handled this situation about as good as you can handle it. And you love to see that. Donovan McMillan was one of the young corners today, young safeties making plays. We heard about Chase Edmonds getting interceptions. Here comes D-Mac going in here and getting a nice run fit, basically stuffing this run here. So great job there by Donovan McMillan. You love to see young corners, defensive backs, safeties step up. We're going to need as much as possible because, again, this team's a little bit thin at that position. Saw Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders get connected here. I mean, nice on-time throw from Shedeur, right? I'm not going to freak out right now about the quarterbacks not being on time, because right now, like most of the quarterback highlights you see, they're holding it about 3-4 seconds, right? For Deshaun, it's a little bit more concerning than it is for Shedeur, in my opinion, right? Shedeur, I think I'm going to give some grace there with him being a second-year player. With Deshaun, I really need to see him get to the point to where it's snappy, right? Like, go watch other practices and other quarterbacks, like good quarterbacks on other teams. They're not holding the ball as long as the Browns are. And again, I understand why that's the case. Installing a new offense, guys are getting used to things. But at some point here, pretty soon, before the first preseason game, I'm going to need to see the operation get a lot quicker, the decision-making get a lot snappier, and guys start to make decisions on their back foot instead of just hovering around back there because they know they're not going to get hit. Wasn't really a noteworthy day for any of the quarterbacks here. I think both of them threw some interceptions today in practice. But if you really want to indicate where our quarterback play is going to be, if they're still if we're talking about joint practice and guys are still holding the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, that's a concern, right? Right now, not freaking out about it right now, but just keep your eye on that as we go forward, because the longer we get through practice and the more we see guys holding on to the ball, we're counting 3 to 5 seconds on dropbacks, the more concerned you should be about quarterback play overall for this team. Because I have noticed that when I watch other quarterbacks, the ball's out quicker at this portion of camp. The ball is not hovering around. The guys aren't waiting around as much, you know what I mean? But you watch Browns practice, we're really hanging on to that football quite a bit. But it's nice to see Jerry Jeudy make a play here. We'll play it again. And this is a good example of hey, look, he gets to the top of his drop, makes a quick decision. That's kind of what I want to see going forward from both of these quarterbacks. I feel like the install period is done, so we should be at the point to where it starts to look snappy, and this is a nice snappy rep from Shedeur Sanders. So like that, right? It's 7-on-7. It should be snappy, quite frankly, at this point. Deshaun Watson threw an interception to Tyson Campbell. I'm going to look at this as a Tyson Campbell highlight more than a Deshaun Watson low light, because I don't really know what they were trying to do, because the angle here is kind of funky, if we're being honest. But it looks like Deshaun was a little late on this ball to Isaiah Bond, and Tyson Campbell did a good job of undercutting it. You want us it's a double-edged sword in camp, because one of the things we do want this defense to be is more opportunistic and get more turnovers. But in order to do that and demonstrate that they're doing that in practice, our quarterbacks got to throw interceptions. And right now, with everybody's fascination with the quarterback battle, and the quarterback track or whatever people are doing nowadays with it, people are always going to report these interceptions as negatives, right? But there's a double edge to that sword. No, it's not great that Deshaun Watson's throwing a ton of interceptions, but it is a good thing that the defense is capitalizing on a lot of opportunities to get turnovers. I don't know what says more about what the future of the season is going to look like, right? We tend to think that the Browns defense is going to be pretty good. So I don't know if this is just, hey, look, Watson's going against a really tough defense, but it's nice to see the defense get turnovers, right? Like that's another way to look at it. And I think when it comes to training camp, both ends of the sword are sharp, if you feel what I'm saying, right? It's true that we should be concerned about the interceptions, but it's also true that it's a good thing that we're getting those interceptions. You got to look at both points of the sword, not just the one that makes you the most angry in the moment or the most talkative in the moment, right? So, yeah, it's an interception by Deshaun Watson is another one there. But it also looked like a good play by Tyson Campbell. And Tyson Campbell getting interceptions, this defense's secondary getting interceptions is something that they are working on. So it is something that is also positive for the team and hopefully carries over to practices with the Buffalo Bills, right? Where we're hitting, hey, we're getting interceptions versus Josh Allen. That'll get people real excited, right? This is Deshaun Watson to Casey Concepcion in practice. Casey Concepcion's had a really solid go of practice as of late. We saw him at the beginning of this segment. We're going to see him again later on. I don't think I've heard of him dropping any passes as of late, which is awesome, right? Because that was the biggest concern about Casey Concepcion was his drop rate his last year at Texas A&M. Some bad news here. Seems like Zack Zinter took a ride off the field in the golf cart for the Cleveland Browns. We all know what that means for a big guy. It's usually not a good thing. I feel bad for Zack Zinter because it seems like he's just had a cursed career in Cleveland or a cursed start to his career. This was pretty much a make or break season for him because he's now with a team or a coaching staff that did not draft him. And he's kind of, like if we go through Zack Zinter's career, right, he starts off injured at Michigan. That affects his draft stock, right, where he was an All-American. He gets injured. That affects his stock. The Browns pick him in the third round. Now, underneath the Browns picking him in the third round, you got to remember the Browns hired a new offensive line coach in Andy Dicker, right, where Dickerson, I forget what his name was. He was here for like 10 minutes, right, but they hire a new offensive line coach. He comes here, he picks, presumably, right, because we know how the process works with Andrew Berry, where position coaches do get a say in the players that get drafted in their position. He picks Zack Zinter for what he wants to do, and then Dickerson gets fired, right? They hire a new offensive line coach. That offensive line coach is going back to what the Browns used to do, which is more athletic zone blocking stuff, which is like Zack Zinter's not a fit for. Zack Zinter was picked for like some man scheme stuff. So like he's already in an awkward situation where the guy who wanted him is out halfway through his rookie year, right? And then that dynamic continues his second year. This third year, look, everybody's getting a clean slate, and then boom, he gets injured. It's unfortunate for Zack Zinter. This is probably it for him in Cleveland. Maybe he sticks around for another camp if this injury is severe enough. And he's on the injured list for like the rest of the year. But it's just a tough go of it for him. But let's go back to some action at camp. This is a nice pass breakup by Michael Coates Jr., an undrafted rookie, on Deshaun Watson. Look at this play. This is a good play here, right? Because it's a solid ball by Deshaun. It's a back shoulder throw. I think Gage is expecting this to come over his shoulder, and he kind of plays it a little late. The only thing I see in this rep from Michael Coates is he got to get his eyes back around so he doesn't run the risk of getting caught for PI, because he's a little early here. You could call him for PI here because he's a little early here and he doesn't look back for the ball. So that's a little trick. He's a rookie, so you expect this, right? But like that's a little trick, right? If you know you're going to make contact, look back before you make that contact so that they can't say you're early that you're just looking for the ball and it's just regular hand play, right? So he needs to get his eyes up right here, right before he decides he's going to make contact. Because if he's doing that and looking at the ball, they're never going to call it. But it's a nice rep from him, right? Good ball by Deshaun Watson, too. I would say that's a good ball, right? People got to stop throwing 50-50 balls to Gage Larvin of all people, but, like, it's a nice ball. Yeah, that's a good ball. So good throw by Deshaun. But, yeah, it's a good little rep there. We saw Miles Harden get an interception off Shedeur Sanders. Let's look at that. Miles Harden, 26 in the slot. Sits. Tip ball right to his hands. It was really Grant Delpit that made the play. So let's look at where Grant is. Grant's at the top of your screen playing free safety with the orange undershirt. And he does a great job of holding the middle right. He's on that hook. And then he breaks in on Denzel Boston. This is a great job of free safety play by him, right? Look how he sits on the seam. He sees the break. He doesn't panic. He just finds the angle, right? And then he gets in on that play. That's an excellent play there. Ball a little late from the quarterback. I don't know. Is that Shedeur? Yeah, the ball's a little late from the cue because he doesn't throw until he's well into his break, and then it's a little behind. So quarterback definitely could have helped him out because you want that ball. If you're going to throw this is a time, right? Break here. Once you see him break there, you got to know if you got what you want and anticipate this throw and get it out now. But it looks like he's still working on his drop back there. So it allowed too much time. And when you allow time, it doesn't matter if you're throwing to, prime Mike Evans. You give a safety like Grant Delpit that much time to react, they're going to make a play on the football, and that's going to result in an interception. This is a fun one to look at. And, I hope people can be objective about this one because I'm not trying to dog on one quarterback for the other one. I have no dog in this race. But, usually you'll hear when it's a tip ball interception, people go, oh, it's not his fault. It's a tip ball interception. This is why I kind of call bullshit on that kind of ideology a lot of times. A lot of times balls get tipped because they're late or because a quarterback doesn't get the ball out on time or because a quarterback's not accurate, right? Just because the ball went off of somebody's hands doesn't alleviate a quarterback of responsibility for an interception. This is a great example of it, right? Where this is Shedeur's fault because what happened here was Grant made a play. But the reason Grant's able to make a play is, one, this ball should be dragging Denzel Boston towards the numbers, towards the sideline, not towards the numbers, my bad. This ball sits on the numbers, and you see how Denzel Boston has to gear down here and slow down. That right there, if we're not even talking about when this throw comes out, if it's on time or not, that right there is what allows this play to be made, right? If it's on time and accurate, it could score, right? Because Grant is not the fastest safety in the NFL. He's not going to beat you if you're on time and accurate, right? But if you give him a little time, and they gave him more time than he needed here, sits here, again, ball's late, and it doesn't drive, and it's behind. So now that ball gets tipped and it gets interception, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? I know we're used to with quarterbacks, whenever it's a tip ball, oh, it's not their fault. That's the wide receiver's fault. That's just a good play. Sometimes it's the quarterback's fault too. And that's why it's always important to break down and and give a fair look at what's going on before trying to make grand statements about players. But Shedeur for the interception came back and found Casey Concepcion in the end zone. And this is a good play here, right? So he was able to get Casey Concepcion in the back of the end zone. It's a great catch by Casey. Boom, skies up, climbs the ladder. It's a little high, right? But whatever throw scores is the throw that works, right? I'm not going to be too picky about it. I know that we don't have John Elway back there. I'm not going to ask for perfection. But it's a good read here, right? And then you see where this ball comes out, and you see why, if you're going to throw a break, you see where that ball comes out with Shedeur and why this is nobody's able to make a play on it. because it comes out on time. He doesn't give the opportunity there, right? You see the break from KC Concepcion here. A great corner cut by him, right? Way to just cut a slick corner here just to get that angle even steeper. Nice. But you see that ball, by the time he's out that break, that ball is in the air headed towards KC Concepcion. That's the difference between being on time. And look, even here's the thing about being on time. Even if you are inaccurate, but you're on time, you allow yourself that freedom to be a little inaccurate, right? Because this ball's a little inaccurate, but because it's on time, nobody has time to react to it and make a play on it, except for the wide receiver who's expecting the ball out the break. And boom, good ball, right? Being on time is so important. It's going to start mattering more and more. Again, I'm going to have some lenience on this when we're at the early part of practice because I understand they're installing new stuff. It's hard to be on time when you're learning. But now that they're done with the install from this point on, I'm going to start judging whether these guys are on time now. You know what I mean? Because that's going to matter more and more going forward. Daniel Fuise, with this one, said Jared Verse is really good. Just had a great run defense rep, set the edge well, forced Judkins to cut inside. He was knocked down the line of scrimmage by another defensive lineman. Again, we're hearing that Jared Verse is doing great things at camp. And then this is how he wrapped up day 8 of camp. Install has wrapped up. Going forward, Todd Monken said practices will have more situational focus on premier plays and work against defensive looks that they'll see from opponents this season. So the real shit's about to start, y'all. The real shit's about to start. They've been installing the offense the last couple of weeks, the first 8 days of practice. Cool. Only so much I could take away from it, right? Not really judging the quarterback competition stiffly at this point. But now the real shit starts, right? We're going to see them do some situational football, which both these quarterbacks need to work on. We're going to see them work on their money plays that they're developing. And we're going to see them work against defensive looks that they think they're going to see this season. So we're really about to see what these guys have on offense, what we have on offense from the quarterback position. If these guys have made improvements, all of that, it starts now, right? They've got all the stuff out the way, installs out the way. Okay, leniency on 4-second and 5-second drops and 7-on-7, that's over. Now it's time to, ball needs to be out. It needs to be on time. You need to see the things in 3 seconds. You know what I mean? Can't hold the ball. No leniency for that. So it's going to get a lot more serious after this week. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.